Ashley Moody actually used 10 million of our dollars that were supposed to go towards the most medically needy kids in our state to divert that funding and to defeat ballot initiatives that the citizens placed on the ballot. And so Ashley Moody doesn't care about anything but herself. We continue to see her net worth increase. Meanwhile, Floridians across our state, their net worth is going down. They have absolutely nothing in their savings account.
The progressive wing of the Democratic Party just pulled off a major surprise in Florida, and CNN's panel is already debating what this upset actually means for the future of the Democratic Party. Angie Nixon defeated establishment favorite Alex Vindman, despite being massively outspent, and now Republicans are preparing to make her socialist label a central part of the general election campaign. Now, if you're new here, I'm Bradley Hostin, and this is The Bradley Hostin Show. If you enjoy honest political commentary, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. As usual, let's watch the clip, and then I'll give you guys my thoughts afterwards.
The progressive wing of the Democratic Party is showing it's still got momentum, pulling off a surprise primary win in Florida. Democratic Socialist Angie Nixon upset establishment favorite Alex Vindman in the state's Democratic Senate primary. Vindman was a key witness during President Trump's first impeachment and raised, get this, more than 16 times as much money as Nixon. State Rep Angie Nixon joins me now. Representative, welcome back to the show. Congratulations on your win. Your opponent, as I mentioned, had more money, had the backing of the Democratic establishment. What message do you think your win now sends?
Well, for sure. Thank you for having me. And I want to be clear. We knew that we were going to win. Our campaign knew that we were going to win because we put in the work and because we went out and we centered people and the issues that concerned them and that they cared about. The fact was that folks are upset because Donald Trump and unelected Ashley Moody only care more about ensuring that their campaign donors and corporations are getting richer and richer. And meanwhile, everyday people are working harder than ever and still struggling just to stay afloat. And so we were able to resonate with people also because I have a proven track record of standing up and being a fighter. And again, as I stated earlier with you today, it's not about people's labels for me.
Yeah.
I'm a single mom. I was a single mom for, 12 years. I'm a mother now. I'm an organizer. I'm a community organizer. But more importantly, it's about the needs of the people. And what people need is they need housing, right? They need universal health care. They want universal childcare to help lower their costs so that they can just be able to live without struggling or anything like that.
You know, we did talk just last night, actually, anticipation of this moment. And you say that you reject labels. Republicans, though, they already want to paint one right on you. They are leaning into attacking you for being a Democratic socialist. Republican Senator Ashley Moody said this.
Angie Nixon, who will be my opponent in November, and her comrades want to destroy this country and everything that it is built on. I am not exaggerating. I believe that America is the greatest country on earth. And in the face of anti-American rhetoric, folks that want to destabilize this country, I think we all need to stand on that line.
Anti-American, destabilizing, destroying the country. What's your plan to combat that messaging?
Well, first of all, I look forward to Ashley Moody calling me senator in November. And secondly, Ashley Moody actually used 10 million of our dollars that were supposed to go towards the most medically needy kids in our state to divert that funding and to defeat ballot initiatives that the citizens placed on the ballot. And so Ashley Moody doesn't care about anything but herself. We continue to see her net worth increase. Meanwhile, Floridians across our state, their net worth is going down. They have absolutely nothing in their savings account. She won't even hold town hall meetings unless they're Republicans. I am someone who's willing to go out and talk to everyone, even if they don't believe how I believe ideologically, because I want to represent all Floridians here in the state of Florida. Many people who have called and reached out to Ashley Moody's office for help You know who they call because she doesn't return their call? They call me. They email me, and we help connect them to the resources that they need. And so I'm not running away from the people, I'm running to them. And I look forward to becoming their next United States Senator come November.
Well, a Democratic nominee who wants to be called governor in your state is David Jolly, and he praised you as a fighter, but he also said that he flatly rejects socialism. How do you plan to unite the party around your campaign right now?
Again, it is not about labels. It's about the most basic rights that people here in the state need. They need housing. Right now, here in our state, it costs over 18% of the national average to rent a home or to rent an apartment here. People are paying 300 more times for property insurance here in the state of Florida. We witnessed Ashley Moody fail to extend the ACA subsidies, which caused nearly 300,000 people to be knocked off of the Affordable Care Act rolls. She doesn't care about anyone but herself. And also, she did that because her campaign donors are health insurance companies. And so I look forward, Ashley Moody, to taking you on and to whooping you in November, and you will be calling me your senator.
State Representative Angie Nixon, thank you for joining.
Angie Nixon, who Florida state rep, she wins this race for the nomination for the Senate, raising over only $1 million compared to Alexander Vindman, who for a time was a household name because of his role in the impeachment hearings against Donald Trump, who raised $16 million. And I have to wonder if what this speaks to is, I take your point on the socialism piece of this, but what this really speaks to is the limits right now among Democrats in being just strictly anti-Trump, and that being your sort of political personality. One of the things the DSA is doing is talking about kitchen table issues, economics, and they're doing it in a way that rubs some people the wrong way, but that's what they're talking about.
Yeah, but also remember, too, this is a two-person race, and African-American women are really the base of the Democratic Party, and African-American woman won. She's a native Floridian. Vindman, I don't think, was as connected to the state as she was, and so, I think that makes up for a lot, and so I think it's hard to parachute into some of these states and say, I'm your guy. It doesn't always work out so well. So I think that's part of it. But I do think I agree with Noah. I mean, this is a gift to the Republicans in Florida, because now that Senate seat, which was really not that competitive to begin with, was even less competitive now.
I question whether it would have been that competitive. I think Alex would have been competitive against Ashley Moody. She hasn't really done anything for Florida. She's been a rubber stamp for Trump. And Alex would have been a stronger representative for the state of Florida. But to everyone's point here, it is difficult when you are new to the state. Florida is, one of those states where you really need to have roots there, especially for a statewide race like that. Maybe if he had run for Congress, it would have been a little bit, he would have had more success there. But, I applaud him for trying. I mean, Alexander Vindman is a hero, and he should be applauded for trying to run for Congress. Run for the Senate. His brother his twin brother ran for Congress in Virginia and won successfully. So it is, this is definitely going to take Florida off the board.
But doesn't this lend credence to Donald Trump's narrative that the DSA is a national threat? That you can't really talk about this as a New York thing or a Seattle thing or a Colorado thing. It's a national thing. Therefore, we have to nationalize the socialist threat, and also to convince Democrats to send as much money as they possibly can to this.
I think that's a bit of a simplistic view of what we're seeing tonight. There is a lot of narrative around progressive versus moderate, but I think what's really important is the Democratic electorate is looking for candidates that are willing to take the fight in Congress to actually legislate. Cycle after cycle, voters have been very frustrated with the fact that they send people to Congress who end up being more interested in tenure than legislating and actual problem solving. And that's kind of the contrast you're seeing across the country. And unfortunately, for some of the more centrist Democrats that are running, progressives are doing a really good job of filling that.
I mean, her platform includes a national job registry and inflation-adjusted wages and free child care and nationalizing the health insurance industry.
I hear you. I don't support the DSA.
Popular is one thing. It's popular to say that Medicare for all is popular. People don't like to lose their insurance.
I think we will find out, right, how the DSA candidates fare in all of these different places. I think it's definitely going to be state by state, district by district, all of that. But I don't think we know for sure.
Let's talk about Angie Nixon, because she pulled no punches, minced no words. Ashley, do you think that she has a shot in a state like Florida?
Can I say no? I mean,
You can say whatever you want. It's truthful.
It's Florida. I mean, she won the race I think she could win, was primary race in the Democratic primary. She's a better political athlete than Vindman is. You know, she was outspent 35 times. I think what was interesting, though, she only spent $60,000, and none of it was on TV, none of it was on broadcast, none of it was on cable. She ran a purely grassroots campaign, and we've seen that across the country where money is, there's limitations to money now, there's limitations to endorsements. We just talked about Donald Trump's endorsements, endorsed candidates losing, and it seems like now what the winning formula is going back to the basics, and she went back to the basics. She's from Florida, she's of Florida, and it worked. But I think it only worked for the primary because, you know, you have to appeal to a broader audience when you're running statewide in a state like Florida, and I'm not sure she's got the ability to do that.
Let's look at the numbers, because Mark, you're our resident Floridian tonight. I mean, look at these numbers, everyone. This is really, really telling. Retired Lieutenant Colonel Alex Vindman did outraise and outspent Angie Nixon and also Senator Ashley Moody, and he lost. What does that tell you?
He was a terrible candidate. It's difficult for me to put that in words. In some of our conference calls at Axios, I would just start to rant about it. Like I was almost offended by his just inability to campaign properly.
How did he do it? Yeah.
Well, it's more like, how did he not do it? I don't really know where that money was spent, because you didn't really see him on television. You didn't really see him in the community. You didn't see him in mailers. You didn't see him in text messages. There was no presence. About 7 days ago, in preparation for today, I started to think, okay, what does the polling show? And I couldn't find any polling, which is a very rare thing in a statewide election in Florida, something of this import, a Senate seat. And I called a number of pollsters, and everyone's like, no, we're just not paying attention to it. And I realized, well, let's see. I'm not seeing Vindman really campaign. He has no real roots here. He's essentially sort of carpetbagged here. I didn't even know the guy lived in the state. I thought, like his brothers in Congress, he lived in Virginia. And so then I started to think, well, Angie Nixon's a known commodity. She comes from Jacksonville, which is a large media market with a lot of voters. She has an active coterie of progressive supporters who are very into her. And she made her presence known on social media. And a lot of Democrats just didn't know who she was and who he was, including my own wife, who is a longtime Democratic voter. She was not contacted by either campaign. Voters like that walked into the polls, Democratic voters, and they saw a man they didn't know and a woman they didn't know. And a lot of them voted for the woman they didn't know. A lot of progressives showed up because they wanted to vote for the progressive. And a lot of people just didn't show. It was a pretty low turnout primary. All of these things combined together very well for her. Not to take away from her, I agree she was certainly the superior political athlete. Angie Nixon was a better candidate who ran a better campaign, and she won.
Also, black voters made a big difference in that
100%.
race. Vindman was polling and performing poorly with black voters. It became a national story, in fact, and she the very opposite of that. And her last campaign stop was in a black church. I mean, she literally has been in that community, engrossed in it for years. So she had that advantage. One, it's a combination of black voters, progressives, and then some white progressive voters.
Sure,
There's
28%
an
of the
interesting notion, though, then, because on the one hand, you don't want to diminish what her accomplishment is or her track record and her resume. On the other hand, it sounds like this race might not be predictive of a larger, much more involved one, but how are Republicans going to play this?
I mean, it's Florida. Ashley Moody is a popular person. She'll be fine. Democratic Socialists are not going to be terribly popular in Florida. I heard
Parts of Florida.
I heard Ms. Nixon say, well, it's not about labels, which I find curious, and she joined the Socialist Party just this summer. She affixed the label to herself, only now to say, well, it's not really about labels. I actually think Ashley Moody's remarks were dead on. She's just reading out of the Democratic Socialist platform. When you align yourself with people who fundamentally would like to rip, what we know is how America works, out root and branch, you're kind of anti-American. And all these socialists, whether they're in Florida or any other state, are going to face these same kinds of attacks. So I think Ashley Moody has the advantage here.
So this was a really interesting conversation because I think there are actually two separate stories happening here. The first is Angie Nixon's victory, and I think she deserves credit for it. You can agree or disagree with her politics, but she was massively outspent, she didn't have the same establishment backing, and according to the discussion, she ran a grassroots campaign that focused heavily on issues like housing, healthcare, childcare, and the cost of living. And that's important because I think Democrats have to understand something. People don't necessarily vote based on political labels. They vote based on whether they believe a candidate understands their problems. You can call someone a socialist, you can call someone a progressive, you can call someone a moderate. But if somebody is struggling to pay rent, afford healthcare, or keep up with insurance costs, they want to know what you're actually going to do about it. And that's where I think Nixon's campaign found an opening. Now, does that mean she is guaranteed to win a Senate election in Florida? Absolutely not. And I think some of the panelists were right to point out that a Democratic primary is very different from a statewide general election in Florida. But I also think it's incredibly lazy to dismiss this victory simply because she's a progressive, because the establishment candidate had far more money and still lost. That should tell Democrats something. Money doesn't automatically create enthusiasm. Endorsements don't automatically create enthusiasm. And having a recognizable name doesn't automatically create enthusiasm. If voters don't believe you're fighting for them, they can simply ignore you. And that's exactly why I found the argument about being anti-Trump particularly interesting, because I genuinely believe Democrats have learned this lesson the hard way. You cannot spend an entire election telling people how terrible Donald Trump is and assume that's enough. People want something to vote for, not simply something to vote against. If progressives are offering policies that directly address healthcare, housing, childcare, wages, and affordability, Democrats need to be willing to have that conversation instead of immediately running away from the word socialism. And here's the other thing. Republicans are obviously going to attack Nixon over that label. That's politics. But if the Republican strategy is simply going to be, she's a socialist, therefore she's dangerous, then Democrats need to force Republicans to explain what they actually believe about the issues affecting ordinary Floridians, because that's where the conversation becomes much more interesting. Tell voters what you're going to do about health care. Tell them what you're going to do about housing. Tell them what you're going to do about insurance. Tell them what you're going to do about wages. And then let voters decide. And I also think the discussion about black voters is important. Nixon's deep roots in Jacksonville and her connection to the community clearly mattered. You can't just parachute into a state, spend millions of dollars, and expect voters to automatically embrace you because you have a recognizable name. Politics is still about relationships, it's still about organizing. And sometimes, as we saw here, the candidate who actually shows up can beat the candidate with the biggest bank account. Now, I don't know whether Angie Nixon can win statewide in Florida. That's going to be a much bigger challenge. But I do think Democrats would be making a mistake if they looked at this result and simply dismissed it. Let me know your guys' thoughts down in the comment section below. Do you think Angie Nixon's victory represents genuine momentum for the progressive wing of the Democratic Party? Or was this simply a unique Florida primary that won't translate to the general election? As usual, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more news commentaries. I'll see you guys in the next one.